Thank you for joining us on this special broadcast. For the last few days here at Republic TV, we've been trying to keep you updated with every development in Israel and what's happening at the Gaza border. And it's been unending, and we have a very special panel on the show tonight. It's a special broadcast on Republic TV. Let me introduce each one of our panelists on the show this afternoon. Colonel Eli Bar-On, who's live from Jerusalem this evening. On your screen, he's the ex-Deputy Military Advocate General of the Israeli Defense Forces. Colonel Bar-On has recently concluded a 25-year career with the Israeli Defense Forces. Colonel Eli, thank you for joining us. His last position was as an instructor at the Israel National Defense College. Captain Libby Weiss. Captain Libby Weiss is live from the IDF headquarters in Tel Aviv. She is the Israeli Defense Forces spokesperson. Thank you for taking the time out in the middle of what is turning out to be an unending conflict to speak to us. Appreciate it, Captain Libby. Pooja Moses, live from Petah Tikva, site hit by a Hamas rocket. She's been living in Israel for the last 8 years. She's a gemologist by profession. She works for the Diamond Bus in Israel. And I have very special guest, Yaakov Finkelstein. He's live from Mumbai, but putting the entire story into perspective for us here in India. He's the Consul General, the Consulate General of Israel in Mumbai. Earlier was an officer in the Israeli Defense Forces, serving as a platoon commander. And he served as a key commander at the IDF's Officers Academy as well. Let me get started. Captain Libby, it's been unending. It's been unending. And even the rocket attacks, the retaliation. What is the situation on the ground?
Yes, thank you so much for having me. We are now in our second week of this conflict with Hamas. The situation is very tense here on the ground in Israel. Hamas has launched more than 3,700 rockets towards Israelis across the country, with a real concentration on the communities in the south, but also here in Tel Aviv. You can see the skyline behind me, and citizens here in this city have spent the last few nights really running to and from shelters. We have 11 casualties here on our side, and the situation is a very, very tense one.
And if a lot of analysts, looking at this situation and making comparisons, now, you're on the ground. How serious is the situation compared to the previous conflicts we've seen between Hamas and Israel?
It's very serious. We have seen a very large number of rockets within this short amount of time that Hamas has launched. And of course, we understand that they're doing this really from the heart of civilian areas, taking cover from civilians within the Gaza Strip. So without a doubt, it's a very, very serious situation here.
Okay. Colonel Eli Bar-On, now, how are you looking at the situation? Of course, there is a lot of global pressure on Israel to somehow reach a truce. But is that possible, given the situation?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me, and please allow me to send our support and love for India in its fight in COVID-19. As many other Israelis, I had the opportunity to visit India before. I spent 1.5 months there, and it's always been my dream to go back there, and our hearts go out for you in your fight against COVID. It's a horrible tragedy what's going on, and we're sending our support to you. Regarding what we have here, obviously the situation is dire. We've been under incessant attack of rockets, as Libby said, ever since last Monday. So we have in just more than a week almost 4,000 rockets flying in from Gaza. I think in this case, I see many similarities between Israel and India for being peaceful nations. But when we are attacked by undemocratic and terrorist groups, we will fight for what's ours and for our values. I think the Israeli Defense Forces have been assigned a clear mission to fight Hamas, to decimate the infrastructure of Hamas in Gaza, the terror tunnels inside Gaza, and other capabilities Hamas has been increasing in the past 4 years. The Israeli Defense Forces has been doing it very successfully, and I'm not sure we're going to see a truce or a ceasefire in the next coming days before the mission will be completed.
Yeah. Yakov, you're in Mumbai and you're watching the developments very closely. And it's a very, fragile situation that Israel also finds itself in, where you've had to answer a lot of questions. And most often what happens, and it's also been India's experience, when you're fighting terror, most often civilians are on the line. And Hamas's operational tactic has always been to guise themselves within the civilian population. So how tricky a situation is it for Israel diplomatically to wade through?
Correct, Niranjan, as you rightly said, Hamas is launching missiles from within the Palestinian population. So Hamas is actually committing a double war crime. Firstly, they are launching missiles from within the Palestinian population, using Palestinians as human shields. And secondly, they are deliberately targeting Israeli citizens, civilians, killing men, women, children. Also, unfortunately, an Indian citizen got killed by Hamas terror attacks. So actually, we get quite a lot of understanding diplomatically from many countries around the world, United States, but also many European countries. You saw for sure the Austrian Chancellor rising the Israeli flag in solidarity over the Chancellor's residence. Japan, Poland, Czech Republic, many countries sent messages of support, waving the Israeli flag or doing all kinds of gestures. I saw the other day in the Ukraine, the Israeli flag carried in the skies of the capital Kiev in solidarity with Israel. So people understand that we are fighting terror. European countries, many countries around the world understand that it's a common challenge, A terror is a terror is a terror. It doesn't matter if it happens in Israel, in Mumbai, in America, in Europe. There are different names to the terror group, but it's a one deadly organization that we all fight together.
Yeah. And we know when it comes to terror, there is only one way of dealing with it. And that's been India's experience as well. And you know that very well. Let me go across to Pooja Moses. Pooja Moses is in Petah Tikva, a site that was hit by Hamas rockets. You've been a witness to this attack. Pooja, tell our viewers in India a little bit about what you've seen in the last few weeks.
Hi, everybody on the panel. First of all, the second part, being a citizen of Israel, I'm really proud of what Israel is doing right now. And the things that we are seeing are really difficult to digest because it is just not human what we are seeing right now. There was a Hamas rocket hit right into the building, into the house of a citizen. You can see how it is around. You can see the cars have burnt over there. The bomb shelter exactly is under the building, as you can see, because it's an old building. So Pooja, usually the bomb shelters are under the building. You're at the
site? Pooja, are you at the site? Are you at the site? Let's go full frame to you. I'm coming full frame to you. I'm coming full frame to you. Show our viewers about, tell our viewers about this. When did this happen? When did this happen and what did you see?
This happened last week. Yeah, this happened last week, early morning on Thursday at approximately 2 in the night when everybody was fast asleep. We heard rockets. We just went out of the house. It was somewhere around 30 seconds we have to run to our bomb shelters. And we did that. This place is 50 meters from my house. When we heard, we were in the bomb shelter, me and my husband. When we heard this boom, I was sure something was out my house, like my house was gone. But then luckily we came out and we came to know that the fire broke out here and it was really crazy. You can see the windows of the buildings surrounding the attack are all gone. You can see the cars over here. You can see this building, which I'm standing right now. It's all hit with the parts of the rockets. No windows anywhere. You can see how everything is destroyed.
Were there any injuries, any casualties in this attack where you are?
Yes, luckily we did not have any serious casualties over here, but there were 5 people who suffered smoke inhalation, who were treated for that. And also they were suffering with wounds from the shrapnels that come out of the rocket after it's hit.
You know, Captain Libby, this is something that that most often goes unreported by the world media. And I'll tell you, she's in a civilian area, right? And homes were hit, people were targeted. She too is a civilian.
Absolutely. And I think this is just such a clear example of what Hamas is doing, which is targeting exactly that: apartment buildings, businesses, really the heart of civilian areas here in Israel. There have been dozens of direct strikes by Hamas on sites here within Israel. And these are civilian strikes. These are civilian targets, excuse me. The goal is to do exactly what we are seeing from Petah Tikva, to terrorize civilians here in Israel. And this is what Hamas has been doing and continues to try to do in the last more than a week.
Colonel Eli, now nobody wants to target civilians. Nobody wants to see children be homeless, lives of children be lost. But how in a warlike situation, correct me if I'm wrong, it is a warlike situation. Now, how difficult is it for you to try and minimize these casualties and find and pinpoint a target when you're dealing with someone like Hamas?
Yeah, well, let me tell you about my military experience in this, because Israel has been dealing with this challenge for many years now with Hamas and other terrorist groups who have been entrenching themselves, embedding themselves deep within the civilian surroundings. What we are trying to do in order to minimize damage to civilians is use several tactics that will do so. As far as I'm aware of, we're the only military on earth that actually calls people through their cell phones to warn them from impending attack. We use all sorts of precision-guided munitions. We have lawyers embedded throughout the operational process of approving each and every military target. We have several other experts, engineers and other experts, who will help us realize what will be the best angle of strike, time of strike, etc. And we also have a special technique called roof knocking, in which we deploy a projectile with no munitions to the corner of the roof in order to shake the house that will be targeted soon, in order to make sure that people are not there. This is a tactic that's well known to people in Gaza, and this is why we always see videos of these houses before they are being targeted, because people are waiting for the attack and they know fully well how to get away from it. And yet, after having done all of these steps in order to minimize collateral damage, obviously you don't always have the perfect intelligence, and you will have civilian casualties because of the modus operandi of these terror groups.
Yeah. Before I go back to Yaakov, let me take a question with Captain Libby. Captain Libby, you know, we spoke to Lieutenant Colonel Jonathan Conricus yesterday, and the update that we had from him is that Hamas has over 12,000 rockets in its possession, of which you've just informed that a number of rockets they may have fired, maybe close to 4,000. So they still have a lot of armory, a lot of weapons with them, right? Now, how are you tackling with this situation?
Yes, well, we know that Hamas has been investing heavily in the last decade and really building this arsenal and building all of the infrastructure that is part of that arsenal. So the IDF has been striking specific sites within the Gaza Strip, really looking to degrade their capabilities, whether that's striking actual weapons stores, launching sites, intelligence centers, research and development locations, command and control centers. We are really trying to degrade their capabilities and to really have them stop launching these rockets, which is something that seems, of course, so reasonable. But I do think it's important to note that in the last decade, as Hamas has really been building up this capability, rather than investing in the people of Gaza, they are really looking to use their resources for terror purposes. And it's a shame when you think about what they could have done within the Gaza Strip, or what the people of Gaza could have actually received from those kinds of resources. And instead, it is all gone towards terror purposes.
Yeah. And the way we're looking at it here in India, and let me take a question with Yaakov now. Yaakov, I'll come to you before I go across to Pooja. Now, the forces in Israel, of course, you have a protocol every time there's an incoming attack, and we spoke to some Indians there in Israel, especially at the border towns, very, very assured of their safety. Now, they go into their bunkers or their safety rooms, which may not be the case in a densely populated region in Gaza, where Hamas is mixing and working in civilian areas, right? Now, as far as citizens are concerned, it's a very citizen-specific question. How are the forces in Israel ensuring that you ensure minimal loss of lives?
So we have the Iron Dome system that intercepts the rockets, and we have the population, which unfortunately is very experienced in this round of violence. You know, it has been going on for almost 20 years. So our population is quite experienced. It's quite regrettable that time and again Hamas is trying to hit the Israeli population. And by the way, not only Israel, you were talking about the condensed Palestinian population. Mind you that about 20% of these missiles fall and explode in Gaza City itself. Because these are homemade missiles and because they are not professional launchers, many of them explode in Gaza itself, and many of the casualties in Gaza among Palestinians, including Palestinian children, are from the Hamas own launching. So that should be noticed too. So you see that Hamas is actually the enemy of the Palestinian people too, not only of Israel. And I'll tell you more than that. Recently, just yesterday, Israel opened a checkpoint to Gaza to enable humanitarian aid to the Palestinian population. Because the Palestinian people are not the enemy of Israel. Hamas terrorist organization is our enemy. And we allowed supply to Gaza. What does Hamas do? They attack this checkpoint at the time that the humanitarian aid is crossing. You tell me who is the enemy of the Palestinians? Israel, who allows convoys with humanitarian aid to Gaza, or Hamas, which attacks the same convoy?
Pooja, what do the people of Israel... Yeah. Sorry, complete your point. Complete your point.
Yes, about Pooja was showing us the devastation in Petah Tikva. You know, I was born in a hospital in Petah Tikva. I have family there. Uncles and aunties, actually also Kochini Jews from India. And I see the photos and I'm flabbergasted, it's devastated. Are these the enemy of Hamas? People like Pooja, people like my uncles and aunties, like Somaya Santos from Kerala. Yesterday, 2 workers from Thailand were killed by the rocket. 16-year-old Muslim girl from a village near Tel Aviv. Are these the enemies of Hamas? Why are they targeting them?
Yeah. Pooja, what do the people of Israel want? You know, when we spoke to some Indians there, they spoke of how just a few weeks back, trucks from Israel went into Gaza City to help the people there, Palestinians, get COVID vaccines for one. And then suddenly situation goes out of hand. What do the people of Israel want? What do the people of Palestine want?
People of Israel just want peace. People of Palestine, I'm sure, want peace, but I can't explain the situation right now. Not only vaccines, not only medicines, we provide a lot of things to them, like water, like electricity, like fuel. Everything is provided from Israel to them.
Yeah.
So yes, but still when we face problems like this, we have to question twice.
Yeah. Captain Libby, when will this end? You are the spokesperson of the Israeli Defense Forces. Those who are watching this broadcast, and trust me, we've been getting a lot of feedback for our broadcast, and you've been live on this channel a few days ago. I spoke to you, and people just want to know when this is going to end. When will this end?
It's an excellent question. Of course, any decision along that level will be made by the political leadership in this country. I have no doubt that citizens in both places would very much look forward and are looking forward to leaving their shelters and to resuming normal life. And certainly we want to get back to our normal life here as well. As the IDF, we're prepared for any potential scenario, but that's something that the political leadership here in the country will decide.
Okay, I won't hold you back longer. I know you're in the middle of a warlike situation. Captain Libby, Colonel Eli, Pooja Moses, and I'll take one last word from Yaakov. Yaakov, what's your message to the global community? And a lot of Indians also there, their families are worried. What's your message to them?
Our message is that a terror is a terror is a terror. You must understand that Israel is facing a terror organization that doesn't save its own people, that doesn't spare children, Indian citizens, Thai citizens, Israeli citizens, Muslim, Jews, Christians, and Arabs. Whatever the Palestinian terror is blind. And we need your support in fighting this terror because, as I said, today it hit in Israel, yesterday it hit in Mumbai, and tomorrow it can be a third place. We must fight and demolish the terror threat together.
Okay,
and we are also grateful for all the support we are getting. You know, many people are supporting us under the hashtag of India stands with Israel. We get many tweets and support on the media channel, and I want to use this opportunity to thank all the Indians who support us. Today there was a special prayer held in Mumbai for the sake of Israel, and we get a lot of support, and it's really encouraging. So thank you, and thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. When it comes to terror, there is only one stand. There is no good terror, there is no bad terror. And there's only one response to terror. I'd like to thank Colonel Eli, Captain Libby, Pooja, and Yaakov, and all the very best. Thank you very much for joining us on this special broadcast.